Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Everything Dog Training. I'm John McGuigan, Glasgow dog trainer and behaviour consultant. Welcome if it's your first time, and welcome back if you're a repeat listener. I'm always thankful that people take time out of their schedule, whether they've come across us just now or they're coming back to revisit us to listen to what I've got to say. So I appreciate you hugely. A couple of things before we start. I'll introduce our guest in a second. I'm changing the way I'm running my monthly membership programme, and it's probably not going to be available at the price it is for very much longer. So if you have been on the fence about signing up for it, and I'll tell you the details in a second, then please pull the trigger and sign up for it if you could. Because it's likely to be the last time it's offered at this price, because I'm revamping it in order to just try and modernise it a little bit. But I want to give everybody the opportunity to sign up for it as it is, which is £15 per month, which works out about $20 US. You get access to hundreds of training videos from loose lead walk and recall, aggression reactivity, how dogs learn, and a whole bunch of other stuff. There's hundreds and hundreds of video lessons there. I've been putting it together for the last 7 years or something like that, and I'm continuing to add more content on there. There's no tie-in period. You can sign up and you can cancel at any time. You also get monthly check-in calls with me. So we do the first Wednesday of the month. We do a live call via Zoom, and where you get to ask questions and troubleshoot anything that you're having, or we just have a discussion about an interesting dog training topic. So that's there for you as well, and the calls are at 7 PM at London time, and it works at 2 PM Eastern in the US. And if you're not able to make it, you can submit your questions, and all of them are recorded and are uploaded within the next couple of days. So all the previous ones are there as well. All right, so that's there. If you use the code, I think podcast 50, I think it is, but the code is in the show notes along with the link to sign up. So hopefully a few of you will sign up, and I'll see you on the programme. So today we're talking to Jessica Smith. Jess has a degree in zoology and first set up as a dog walker in 2018. Since then she has gained 2 diplomas in animal psychology and behaviour, as well as a certification in dog training, and more recently qualified as a dog body language specialist, which is the subject of today's topic. Jess has been working in South Manchester in England for 8 years, helping people to understand their dog's communication in order to connect with them on a deeper level and support them to becoming well socialised adult dogs living in busy city suburbs. She spends her days offering training walks for local clients to help them on their training journey, and her evenings are spent in consultations both in home and outdoors to develop people's practical skills. She has her own dog Ernie, who's a 9-year-old Irish setter, who helps her at work to teach her clients and their dogs about dog-dog social interactions. Something not a lot of people know about Jess is that she studied midwifery briefly before setting up as a dog walker. Even though she knew animals were her true passion, it definitely nurtured her love for supporting people, which is something she loves dearly about her current job. We had a great conversation. We had a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We'd broken it down into 3 sections, and I don't even think that we covered all of section 1. So hopefully we'll get Jess back on in the future, and we'll talk about stuff. So I think all my conversations on the podcast with my guests are interesting, and I hope you do so too. So let's get into it. So thanks for taking time out your day to speak to us today, Jessica. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Manchester in the UK.
Cool.
Yeah, just south of the city centre. So yeah.
And what do you train dogs?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I do a lot of training walks where I'll go in and spend time with people's dogs and give them feedback and things like that. And then I do consultations with people as well at home and outdoors. Yeah. Okay, cool. How long have you been doing that for? I set my first business up in 2018. So what's that, about 8 years? I was a dog walker for a little while and just cutting my teeth on the training, getting some diplomas in the kind of psychology side of stuff, and then went full time into the dog training side, and just after COVID in 2020. got my certification, and yeah, so yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, but my kind of daytimes are going out around spending time with the dogs and
Yeah.
them out for their time out and socialization and things. And then in the evenings is the consult time and the weekends.
Yeah, cool. All right. So we're going to talk about some stuff on body language today, and we've got a few different things. So we've got um, three broad topics. We've got body language for dog social experiences. So I take it that's dog to dog social interactions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then we've got what we need to know about canine body language as humans, and then what we need to know about our community
Mm.
of dogs, so our local community of dogs and a broader community as well if we're going elsewhere. Um, why is it important to understand body language?
I think it's kind of, in my opinion, it's everything. If you're living with another species, then being able to read their emotions and their intentions and responses to things is integral to being able to kind of support them emotionally when you're out and about. It's about raising them, making sure that they're feeling safe and acting appropriately, and then, yeah, getting to know them very well so you can kind of connect with them better
Yeah,
to have that relationship that you need so much to train a dog and take them out in the world.
yeah, because it's hard to. I mean, communications. It's if we can't communicate properly with the other, then there's no relationship really, is there?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's just a one-way kind of tyrannical kind of thing of like, you do what I say all the time without any of that back and forth.
Yeah,
And I think it's a really special part of owning a dog, being able to kind of have a bit of a chat with them, really,
yeah.
and have that back and forth communication. Yeah, definitely.
I worked a long time ago with, and people get not so much anymore, and certainly not in the fields that or the people that I'm working around and with. But I remember, so 30 odd years ago, 25 years ago, I worked with people with learning disabilities, and
Mm,
and there were people can get upset when you talk about this because the immediate thought for some people is, oh, you're comparing people with who are mentally disabled, at children and adults to dogs. No, not because they're the same, but because we have the
mm,
same barrier to communication with them. We're trying to communicate in a way that we communicate, and it's not being received, and the other way around.
mm,
You know, and there's lots of
absolutely.
right.
Mm.
So spotting when a dog says yes and when a dog says no during an interaction. Let's talk about that. So what's going on there?
So I think something that I deal with a lot with clients is, they're taking their dog out into the world and they are trying to give them, they're trying to socialize them properly. And, they hear a lot of the advice, you shouldn't let your dog interact with every dog they see, which is definitely the right advice. It's all about finding that balance and it preparing them for like a normal life. And I think something that I try to help people notice is actually when other dogs in the environment are saying, yeah, okay, let's have a bit of a hello. And when they're saying, absolutely not, I don't want to do that. Um, and generally it's quite obvious when when two dogs are kind of looking at each other and think, is there going to be some kind of interaction, or do they look like they're just sniffing the ground and walking basically away from you?
Right, I'm going into why is it obvious? It's probably obvious to us, but if it's
Sure.
that obvious, we wouldn't be
Sorry.
talking about it. No, it's okay. It's all right because I mean, this is why we educate, and this is why we put stuff like content like this out there. So, what's obvious? What are the obvious signs we're looking for?
So if you're approaching dog with your dog and the dog that you are approaching is kind of the head up, they're looking at your dog, they're making some kind of visual eye contact with them, or maybe even just avoiding that eye contact, slightly kind of turning their head, and they're approaching your dog with some kind of intent to either come close and decrease distance with them, or to kind of pass by close by. Um, Whereas a dog that isn't really looking to interact will most likely be creating a lot of space. So they'll be either creating a curve around and trying to um, create distance rather than decrease it. And they might be sniffing the ground and just basically occupying themselves with something else. They'll be looking away, they'll be moving away, and they'll be just trying to get on with their day. So those are the kind of the main differences you might see.
Okay, so we've got a few things there. When it's similar to ourselves, I suppose. If we're in a crowded space, we can still create distance. You can create distance emotionally and through your body language. So if you're standing on a crowded train or bus, you don't look directly at the person who's standing right shoulder to shoulder. You look out the window, or your gaze will be 10 or 15 feet. So even within closer proximity, there's things that indicators that your dog might be doing that say yes or no.
It's kind of, we call it displacement. So it's kind of shifting their energy to a different activity, or to kind of take pressure off themselves. So lots of dogs will sniff and they'll get their nose down and they'll just go on, they'll occupy themselves, or they might look to their owner for some kind of support. They're thinking they're seeing a dog looking at them saying, oh, we're going to interact, and they don't really want to do that. Lots of dogs will kind of turn away and look up at their owner in a way to say, like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable here, can you help me out? And we might come on to that in the next section, but that's something that we can, as owners, kind of get involved with to give them that support through those scenarios.
And I always, when I'm coaching people, one of the things that I'll say to people is your dog will tell, most dogs will tell you what they want to do well before we notice it, if we're keen to notice it. And generally what I'll say to people is, I mean, in canine body language, they can't use words, so they can vocalize, but that's relatively rare, actually.
You don't see it a lot. It's kind of, if it's gone on too far and they've not been heard, kind of thing. Yeah.
So we've got what the eyes are doing, what the nose is doing, what the ears are doing, what their face is doing, their head and their neck carriage, the relaxation, how their spine is moving, how their hips are moving, how their tail is moving. And it's all in relation to each other.
Absolutely. It's all happening all at one time. It's a real skill to be able to read it in the moment. And, it's helpful to break it down into those categories for people so they can kind of just get used to, what does my dog's tail do in these situations, and where does my dog's ears go? How are they feeling in that sense? Are they tense, are they forward, or are they pinned, or are they looking kind of floppy and relaxed? And then over time, people get used to the fact that, it's a whole picture that they're going to see, and it's all going to happen all at one time. But it's trying to get to know your dog and what their body, because every dog is different as well. They'll have slightly different nuances to their communication. So being able to spot those and read it in that moment, it's a skill. I advise people to actually look at videos of dogs so that they can just sit where there's not this pressure of what's going to happen. I've got all my emotions going on, and I don't know what this dog's going to do, and all that kind of thing, and being able to just really, I guess, take it quite seriously, in the sense that this is quite a difficult skill that people have to build. Like for us, we've been doing it for years. You've been doing it considerably longer than me, and it kind of comes naturally, and we can see it in the moment just immediately. But for people to, it's often a mind-blowing experience for people when you go out and you're talking them through what you're seeing, and they're like, oh my God, I'd never even spotted that. And I want people to spot that, because they'll stay safer.
Now, I'm assuming you're in your 20s.
Not flattering, no, I'm in my 30s.
Right, okay. So, do you get every social interaction with humans right?
Oh God, no.
Right, so you've had
Absolutely not.
3+ decades,
Yeah.
right? 3 decades plus on a planet. I'm 50, I was 52 a couple of weeks ago. And I actually actively I mean, if you don't know my background, I was a cop for a long time, and I did some really, really interesting roles in the police, and I actually had to, and towards the end, really actually started studying body language. One of my roles, I went from being in uniform for a long time to being in plain clothes, where you don't want to be seen or observed, or noticed rather. And so you have to then not act like a cop. I can spot plainclothes cops a mile away, right? A mile away. I'm like, oh, there's the police, right? Just in how they carry themselves and eyeball everybody walking down the street. So, but even in our social interactions, I'm 52, and you still misread things.
Definitely, yeah.
That flash of somebody's facial expression, and we can take it personally, whereas that might not have anything to do with us. or that just
Mm.
just the person's resting face. You know, what's the matter?
Yeah,
And that's just what they look like. So some of our dogs are like that as well, eh?
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the body language stuff is I just love it. And I think similarly with people though, I really have enjoyed learning more about human. Have you seen the TV show Lie to Me with Tim Roth? It's all about micro expressions on the faces. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah,
Oh, love it. But yeah, it's not every dog wears the heart on their sleeve, as it were, and it really does take time to understand, yeah, those tiny little nuances. And but the thing is, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. And I think that it's a bit of a blessing and a curse because there's a lot of people kind of misread body language, and we go into that a little bit more. But and then once you're out there saying, actually, that's kind of they're feeling a little bit stressed or a little bit overwhelmed there when somebody thought that their dog was really happy and loving life. It's a difficult thing to kind of come to terms with and learn because it's, yeah, definitely a blessing and a curse, I think.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if you listened because I did two with Tess recently. I haven't published the second one yet. No, I actually think it was on that one. We're talking about breeding companion dogs for a modern human world rather than trying to adapt the dogs that we've historically bred for some purpose, some working purpose. And what Tess was saying that she sees stress signals in dogs like all the time, and like
Mm.
all the time, all the time. Um,
Mm.
Dogs who are routinely throwing out stress signals, displacement signals, calming signals, whatever we want to call them, and
Mm.
and that's just their natural, not natural. That's their almost permanent state of being.
Mm. Yeah, it's yeah, definitely I'm a bit of a killjoy when I go out with my mates and I was like, oh, that dog's look really cute. I'm like,
Really
actually, it's really stressed. It'd rather not be here. Like going to any kind of dog event, which obviously, I ran a business before. We had a shop side of the business and we would do dog
Yeah.
festivals and, things like that. And it's just, we would be dreading it because it's uh, just a sea of dogs that are just a bit stressed out. Yeah, yeah. It's really hard.
We did one fairly recently, a couple of months ago, and one Sunday afternoon, and uh, we came away from it. And I said there was one dog that should have been there today.
Yeah.
One dog that was actually
One.
having a good time out of dozens.
Yeah, no. We went once, an old client, we saw them at one of these things and they're like, oh, I've not brought my dog since you've taught me about this because they just don't want to be here. And I thought, yes,
Yeah,
God, that's one more dog
absolutely.
advocate out there.
I did. We had a Neapolitan Mastiff years ago, and I did discover dogs with her as over the weekend of Crufts. And you would, so over the 4 days, you would do a morning or afternoon. And only now, well, not, I mean, I realized long time after, I knew she was probably a little bit stressed, but I didn't realize how much she stressed. She freaking hated it.
Really.
Hated it. She just used to go in
Mm,
and go into the corner, curl up into a ball and go to sleep.
right.
And it was just
Bless
like
her.
that. I know, I don't want,
I'm out.
1,000 people, coming round and saying hi to me. And
Yeah.
I would never do it again, ever.
No, no. I don't I've only been to Crufts once and I did that going around and meet the breeze and I think it would be there was years and years ago, so I think it'd be a wholly different experience now to see it.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
they've got, bless them, they've got that resilience to just get through it, which
I
is
know.
really lovely for them. But it's just, you'd rather just not be there at all. Yeah, yeah.
Children in war zones have that same resilience.
Pardon?
Children in war zones have that same resilience.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. The sad fact of it. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Just kind of, it's that, I guess you could like kind of learn helplessness where it just looks like
yeah,
they're fine and they're really, really not fine at all. Yeah.
yeah. Couple of killjoys, the two of us. Okay,
Let's pick it up.
right. Things to look for in dog-dog interaction. What we're talking about there.
So, yeah, just things that kind of everyone can look out for that means an interaction's going well or will go well or will end well, I guess. And mirroring is probably the biggest one for me, and that reciprocity as well that I've mentioned on the notes there. But is the energy matching? Is the intentions kind of matching? So is the you might not have a match of energy, but are they able to co-regulate with one another and listen to one another. I guess I always try to keep the energy generally down, and by energy I mean like arousal and anticipation and excitement and things like that, and try to
expand on some of that, right?
Pardon, sorry.
Ask you to expand a little bit on that, and the reason for that is it's the same as so you know the kind of thing from the 60s, like having good vibes. So that came from the hippie movement, right? Now if you look at where it comes from, vibrations, that's what it means, good vibrations, like the Beach Boys song. But it's vibrational energy between your cells and your body, actual physical vibration that we would be able to measure in some way through physics, right? So we are picking up on that. It's like, when you go to a party and it changes, the atmosphere changes because we are designed to pick up on that vibrational energy. And this is without it being kind of howling at the moon and, forest bathing type stuff, and crystals and all that. So right, it's what are we looking for? What is somebody, so when you say the energy changed, there'll be something, we are feeling it, right? And I don't mean an emotion, I mean an actual physical sensation somewhere deep in our body, because that's how we've evolved. But what useful advice can we give to people to notice what are they looking for energy wise? Because we know that people talk about, that it's just you have to match the energy with their dog. Well, how does that help me? How do I do it? You're not quite feeling it yet. You need to give me some help, get me in the right direction as to what I'm looking for. So what are you seeing? Describe that energy that you're talking about.
I think for me, I'm looking at the tension in a dog's body. So, how stiff is just, and we talked about before, all the different parts of the body that can go into this. So the tail and the ears and the jaw is a big one as well. What tension is there in the body, and what is the fluidity of their movements? Is it like staccato, kind of, I can't think of another word for it, it's a musical term, but kind of jumping and tense, or is it fluid? Are they able to, I guess it's basically trying to tell whether the dog is able to think and continue to make decisions, or have they kind of frozen and are they just really, really tense? And you might get one dog that is a bit more tense and a bit more insecure in a interaction, and then we're looking at the other dog. Are they matching that tension and seeing the tension and matching the tension with the energy of that kind of more uncomfortable energy, I suppose. Does that make sense? And then, or are they able to maintain some fluidity and motion and just smooth motions in their movements to bring that tension away and kind of dissipate what the other dog is feeling because they're so tense. Sorry, I've said tense a billion times, but
because that's what you're seeing, that tension, I have so many. I mean, I know we've got some notes to work towards, but we've got so many offshoots. It's a good conversation. Do you think that most, some, few, all adults can recognize what play looks like in adults?
In adults, I mean humans or humans. I don't know. I would have thought it'd be something they don't see very often. So I would think most people would not be able to read it well, just if they just suddenly saw it, because they're not used to seeing it. And I think that the type of behaviors that go along with play, which is that kind of body to body touching and lots of movement and potentially noise, but not necessarily, that associated with, pardon?
In dogs.
In the dogs.
So you said their body touching the sound and all that kind of stuff. You're talking about dogs now rather than people.
I was actually talking about people playing. Okay. I mean, to be honest, I don't remember the last time I saw two adult people playing. I'm here thinking I don't even know what that looks like. But I think the types of behavior that go along with play. I mean, you look at their facial expressions and you might see that they're smiling, and that would give you a bit of an idea that they're not fighting. But I think that generally people who see adults close together, rough and tumble, would probably think that looks like they might be fighting.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And then when it's the same with dogs. I mean, dogs so rarely make body contact with one another. They're very specific about it. I think we're kind of apes, aren't we? So we do a lot of touchy-feely, shaking hands, hugging, and all that kind of thing. It's very normal for us to kind of engage in those types of behaviors, but dogs really aren't. So if they're making physical contact with one another, there's a reason for it. And play obviously is one, but fighting and mating are the other two main ones.
Yeah.
But so I don't think people would be very good at sussing out whether adults are playing or not. I mean, you do jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
and that's like a really nice, you're having a lovely time,
Yeah.
but you're trying to kind of fake kill each other all the time. So I don't think people watching jiu-jitsu would feel comfortable because they might think, oh, it looks a bit serious, that.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys in the moment know that it's you'll tap out and everything will be okay.
And this is, I mean, that's kind of where I kind of say I have a goal to do a podcast without mentioning jiu-jitsu on it, right?
Oh, that was my fault then.
No, no, not at all. No, because that's when you started talking about it there, that's what came to mind. And we have, so I finished a beginner's course at our place last week, and I've got another one starting in 2 weeks' time. So for those of you, if you're listening to this, you don't know, jiu-jitsu is basically what happens when you go to the ground and when you're fighting, when bodies fall onto the ground. So you have to pin your opponent and choke them or pretend to break a limb, right? And you stop just before that and they tap out, right? Now, we learn through play. So I play lots of, in quotes, games. I don't know how well my students think that they're games, right? But they're games, right? And I'll give them a task. Now, what I say to them all the time is, this should look playful, right?
Okay.
If it doesn't look playful, you're now competing. So if you're
Okay.
playing badminton with your friend, most adults, if they start playing, they play five-a-sides. If they do some sporting activity, even like chess and stuff like that, you play chess. Yep. You don't play at knitting, right? You don't play at crochet or you don't play at reading. That's not play. It's a different, it's different
Last
enrichment.
time.
Yeah. So, but as soon as So you say you play badminton with your friend, with your friend. See, unless the two of you are completely not taking it seriously at all, you want to win, and as soon
Mm,
as you start introducing the competition in there, it becomes less playful.
mm,
Immediately.
absolutely.
Immediately. So the good skill with dogs is for them to be able to play without it being, yeah, it's cool. So when I do it with
Mm,
jiu-jitsu, we've got, and I'm older than almost everybody in my place, but I've been doing it a long time and I've got old man strength, right? Because I've been lifting weights for a whole adult life, right? So
mm,
I'll get somebody who's half my age, but I've got 20 kilos on. And what I'll do, and I'm playing with them during sparring, if I do a move on them and get an advantage, I'll say to them, and I do it with like a laugh and I'll just say, that's rubbish, isn't it? Right?
oh dear.
I make them laugh, right? Because I'm just like that. You don't need I have bested you here. You do not need to take this seriously now. Because I don't want to
Mm,
get injured because they're 25 years younger than me, and then they start getting the mad head on where they become competitive. And with good
mm,
dog skill, it is like that self-handicapping.
absolutely. Yeah, it's that because I mean the dogs are fighting. They replicate fighting
Yeah,
behaviors when they play, which is why it's so hard to distinguish between what is
yeah,
a fight and what isn't. But that's that kind of the handicapping. So a dog kind of a bigger dog of two dogs falling on their back and showing their belly and like, oh, you've got me, kind of in that kind of way, just to say, there's a clear disparity in power in these, if you've got a Labrador and a Dachshund or something like that, you do want to see that Labrador doing that self-handicapping so that they're saying, this is play. I'm not actually you're actually in no danger, even though I'm, scrapping at your neck and our mouths are hitting each other and things like that. So, and that also the switching of roles, that's another important one in play with dogs. So you might have one dog chasing another dog, and to prevent that the dog being chased, feeling actually, oh, this has gotten a bit serious. I can remember being chased by my siblings up the stairs. The fear of God that goes through you. I mean, it's awful.
yeah,
Even though you're just running up the stairs away from your sibling. But same with dogs. So you want to see that dog that has chased the other dog now stops and says, okay, your turn, mate, come on, let's go this way, so that it doesn't become an actual threat for whichever dog is being chased. And it's often, that's quite a common thing that people misread. They go, oh, they love being chased because they're still running away. But it's because now they've switched from, oh, isn't this great, to holy hell, I've got to get away from this dog. So yeah, being able to step in and just go, whoa, boys, let's have a break there and see if we can switch it around. Because obviously they get into a trance a lot of the time, and they forget that they need to, well, they might, the dog that is chasing the other dog might just get a bit lost in the chase, and once you then break it up, slow them down a bit, give the other dog a chance to come back in, they kind of find their heads again and can carry on playing nicely. But it's those like the green, amber and red flags, you know, the amber flags being those.
You seen
Is
Madagascar?
it switching?
Madagascar, the movie?
Yes, yeah.
So when Alex the lion becomes hungry and starts chasing Marty, and Marty becomes a steak.
Yeah.
And you can see it. I mean, they represent it brilliantly, and you can see it's like a switch in his head. His eyes focus. His face becomes tense.
Pupils go
he
big.
looks wild, and plus he's lost all the weight, so he looks that kind of lean, kind of mental,
rangy.
Oh, exactly. Right, rather than the kind of big fat king. And and it's that you're looking for, that change. And I said to somebody the other day, I was working with them with their spaniel, and I said, I don't know how else to say this. I want that to be less psychotic looking. Right.
Sure,
and the dog, and she said, yeah, cool, I get it, because it's so the amount of focus that this dog was doing. I said, can we dial that back down to about 40 from where you are?
Yeah.
So your dogs, that chase example, one dog is chasing the other. And the person says the dog likes being chased. What are you looking for to see that, one, the dog being chased is not having a good time, and two, the dog chasing isn't recognizing that?
So the dog being chased, I'd be looking at the tail position. If they're really tucking their tail and they're kind of scooting their bum away and they're feeling threatened that they're going to get grabbed in some fashion, that's a sign for me. I'd be just monitoring that, making sure that's not, is the other dog reading that body language and slowing themselves down or not. A lot of the time the dog will kind of turn and face their head towards the dog chasing them and kind of snap at them a little bit and try and slow them down, or they'll whip their bum away and try and face them. Again, in an effort just to create a break in that chase, just to be like, whoa, okay, we need a break here. And for the dog that is doing the chasing, again, if they're having all of that happen and they're not slowing themselves down, then that's a sign that they've maybe just lost their heads a little bit and they're not really thinking about this as a playful, nice, cooperative experience, and they're just going a bit hell for leather and being a bit too boisterous and just not responsive. So just kind of badgering and keeping on badgering and not reading that request for that break in that space. You might see the other dog stop and shake off as well, the one that's been chased for a while, and they'll use that shake off to kind of create the break in and of itself, but also shake off some of their own kind of, we all get it when we've had a bit of a worry and we kind of just feel like we need to do a little shimmy and just shake it off a bit. And then again, if the other dog is...
The shake off is the dog moving as if it's shedding water. So when your dog comes out the water or the bath, does a full body shake, but they're not wet.
Absolutely, yeah. I've heard some people call it like an adrenaline flush. That just like to just bring their whole arousal down and just shake it off a bit. And the other dog may or may not read that. Lots of dogs, unfortunately, I've seen in the past, they will just bundle right in mid-shake while the other dog's shaking off. They're like, oh, that's an exciting movement, I'll go in and have a little bit of a go on that. And it's definitely not what the other dog is trying to communicate. They're trying to create a bit of a break in that stress.
So the break, when the dog being chased turns around and breaks, what they're trying to say to the dog is, can you stop? And a lot of the time, if it is that reciprocal way, the dog chasing will then peel off and say, do you want to chase me now? Role reversal that we've got there.
Yeah, and they might kind of turn and look at them and run away, or they might do some little pass-bys in a, they'll like you say, peel off and then come back round and run close by and see, do you want to carry on? It's just giving them the opportunity to opt back in, which is what you kind of want throughout all play with dogs, really. You just want those moments where the dogs are checking, are we both cool?
Yeah.
And if they're not, then we need to kind of help them get it right or create a break.
How do we help them? What do we do?
So the best advice is just I mean, if you're out and about and it's your dog, it might be both of your dogs, in which case just going in and trying to create some distance between them. But it might be that there's this other owner and your dog, and you just say, let's just create a bit of a break. Let's go into our dogs, just get hold of them either by the harness or the collar, maybe use a bit of food to just guide them away, create some distance, and just kind of facilitate that break for them.
Yeah.
And if there has been one dog that has been seemingly feeling a little bit more threatened and a bit more overwhelmed, so doing those kind of snapping behaviors or the shake offs or trying to create the break, then we usually give that dog the opportunity to kind of opt back in and see if they want to carry on. And if they don't, we just either create something else for those dogs to do together, either a scatter feed, chuck some biscuits around for them to just be able to sniff together, because then they're still kind of around one another and they are sharing space and all that kind of thing, but they're doing something a little bit more appropriate, a little bit more calm, so that they can kind of readjust back to not playing together necessarily, and just sharing some time together.
Yeah, cool. Okay, going to go back a few stages. So we go, and it's fine because of the way the conversation's moving. To getting into play. Using that example in jiu-jitsu, so it's physically intimate, lots of chest to chest connection, your leg wrapped around the person, so the only time that you're ever in that position with somebody, the only time you're ever in that position with anybody else is during sex, right? And that's what, and I keep saying to this guy, this is not what this is, right? It's
don't get any ideas.
Yeah, it's simulated battle is what it is, all right? Because those are the only two times you're ever that close to somebody, physically intimate through affection or physically intimate through aggression. Because otherwise, you're never that close to somebody. Or your siblings as well, but that's again that's affectionate. Siblings or your children, that's not about sex, yeah. So you've got that physical, emotional intimacy. And at the start, they're like, I don't want to get that close to somebody. And I go, cool, so you need to relax. Whereas I've been doing it a long time. I can go in and just go, these are the rules, cool, we'll just get into it, right? I can roll with pretty much anybody. How do we, and that takes time, so that even with adult learners, that can, and some people just don't like it. One guy signed up for the last beginner's course and he did 2 classes out of 12 weeks. In the first week and never came back. Just like that. Nope, not for me. I don't want somebody sweating into my face, And that's, that's the reality of it, right? So how do we get to the stage where we can walk past somebody in the street to getting them on the mats that you've never met before, and you can immediately roll into start training with them? So the same as with our dogs. There's a dozen, 100 steps between introducing yourself to a dog and being able to play with them like you've just described. So what are we seeing at the start that we need to examine?
So do you mean introducing a dog to another dog and what to look for in those early stages?
And I'd even go a step further back than that, and it's to try and get people thinking about, so what we've said is, what you said there was introducing another dog. The introduction is happening and we're just there to facilitate. So we're not actively introducing them. They're introducing themselves to each other because of the situation that they found themselves in, walking past each other in the street or in the park. And I don't know if I did. I think I've done. Yeah, I did. I think I've done a podcast on the language that we use and why it's so crucial to convey. But we're talking about body language, eh? The difference between facilitating an introduction and introducing your dog to another, the onus is on us in the latter, and on the dogs on the
Mm.
farm. And
Mm.
if we're not careful, deliberate and careful about the words that we're using, we start going, we need to introduce the dogs to each other rather than
Mm.
facilitate an introduction between the two of them.
Mm.
That's just to give you some background. So if you're walking down, say you're in your park, local park, and you're walking through it and you see a dog and you come across each other, what are we looking for initially? And then beyond the first 5 seconds, 30 seconds, minute to get to that stage in play?
So the initial steps that you're looking for, I mean, I think you mentioned it just before, it can happen at quite a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So the dogs might see each other from 50 yards away plus, and that's them already in a conversation. And at those points, again, I guess for me, it just always comes back to that like fluidity and the tension that they carry. So if one dog is stopped at 50 yards away because there's a dog up there, then we know that this dog might need a little bit of help to get through this situation because they're already worried and the dog is really far away.
Sorry, I'm just making some notes
That's
because
okay.
there's lots of stuff to unpack in that. Okay, on you go.
Mm. Mm. I would be, yeah, wanting to make sure that maybe that both dogs have kind of seen each other. But again, if we're facilitating, it's more of a supervisory role.
Yeah.
We are just there for them and we're going to help facilitate this interaction. I mean, if the dog's on a lead, I'd be definitely wanting to make sure that they were able to move themselves any which way that they wanted to move. So as you're approaching another dog, the most likely case is that they'll want to kind of curve towards one another. They're not going to want to walk directly at one another because that's not really a natural way for dogs to approach. It's a calm, well socialized way to approach.
And our pavements get in the way then. Our street design gets in the way of that, doesn't it?
100%, yeah, definitely. And lots of people say, I just want to be able to walk past the dog on the pavement. That's just all I want. And I just think like that's it's potentially achievable, but not for every dog because it's such a tight little I don't know how wide a pavement is, less than 2 meters wide.
Yeah.
And they're dead straight, and it's you can see for ages. So this is then all of this kind of build up, these dogs walking towards one another without being able to curve about.
What are we looking? Given that that's I had a week of it on social media last week with people not reading the words that are written, and then not actually process them. So this view of natural behaviours and not natural behaviours, right? Right. So that was the crux of it, and a couple of the more idiotic comments were, well, our entire dog's lives are completely unnatural because we've domesticated them. And I says, well, given that that's the starting point, I think we need to up our game a little bit then, don't we? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Given that the starting point is that dogs live in a city and are on a lead, right, a 2 meter lead. If the person's doing well, right, have the dog on a 2 meter lead. Most people, or a lot of people, walk their dog on a shorter lead than that. You're walking your dog on a 2 meter lead. You're walking down the street, parked cars on one side and buildings or gardens on the other. Okay, somebody else is walking towards you with their dog, and it's an alley, effectively, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a gauntlet. What can we do to facilitate? What are we looking for to observe? And what first in our dog's behavior or body language? And what can we do to facilitate that, being able to walk past that other dog?
So for me, when I'm doing it, my dog is pretty capable of doing that kind of close pass by. I'm often looking at the other dog personally, and I'm seeing it. Are they stopped? Are they looking like they're feeling they can approach and get through this, or are they trying to stop, move away? Kind of. Also, the human's body language comes into it a lot. I know that we're talking about dog body language, but the human is looking kind of. I mean, you can't always trust the human to understand, but if they're kind of coming and they look like they're not that worried,
Yeah.
That's one part of it. And then we're looking at the dog. Is the dog worried? And have they picked up on that? But yeah, sorry, I'm all over the shop.
Okay.
But
No, not at all.
the looking at, so calming signals is this kind of bracket term for ways dogs calm themselves, but also communicate to other dogs that they are no threat and they're trying to, like we said before, kind of bring that energy down. Harm the other dog as well. So that's things like licking their lips and turning their head away, might be sniffing the ground, might be yawning, but I think yawning, they're probably already a bit stressed by the time they're yawning, I would have thought. So when you're heading towards a dog in that kind of beeline, you're in a straight line, what I would be looking for to know that the dogs are going to handle it well is that they are kind of turning their head away and getting their nose down to the floor a little bit and trying to basically put their body a little bit side on as well. So they might try and curve, or they might do a little bit of crab walking where they kind of stick the bum out to the side and crab along. And that they might be licking their lips. And these are such tiny behaviors that you really have to know what you're looking for when you're watching. Because the lick of the lips, certainly if your dog is slightly ahead of you facing that way, it's very, very hard to tell if they've licked their lips or not.
Yeah.
And little head turns, they can be so little, just like a little turn to the left or the right and then back in, just because they're saying to this dog, we're clearly getting into this situation here where we've got nowhere to go. And I'm trying to tell you as much as I can that I'm not here to have any kind of altercation. Let's just get through this. Let's get through this together. So yeah, those head turns, but the dipping of the head as well, just kind of dipping the head, lowering the neck a little bit, but not in that kind of staring at the dog head dip, which is a bit more intense.
Yeah.
Just kind of dipping their head and lifting it. Just, it's almost like keeping their body moving to just convey that they're not really tense and they're just going to stop, and it's going to get, overwhelming and tense. They're just trying to keep that fluidity in the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's yeah. So as you're talking there, and because this isn't on video, it's just on audio, you can see me wanting. So generally, I put my finger up, or put my hand up if I've got something to say. I'm cautious of not interrupting your flow as well, but at the same time that we've got stuff to expand on, which is why I want to interject. So it's the same navigation as that, isn't it? You know, you're in your mid flow, and I go, can we talk about what you've just said there for just a second? Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, and you recognizing that to go, oh, it's John's turn to talk now, you know, and this is your turn to talk for most of this anyway, which is why I get guests on. So you've got the dog looking away, and the dog, and just as you said, that the other dog is looking to recognize that and reciprocate.
Yeah. So that mirroring again, like I said earlier, the one dog is putting out a calming signal and the other dog is hearing that calming signal and then kind of giving out their own calming signals. And it's just these two dogs going, I'm no threat. This is very tense. This isn't very natural for us. I can't get away. And it's, you want to see that it's kind of happening both ends. And if it's not, then you can always you can always cross the road if it's safe, obviously not just walk out in traffic. I mean, you can divert into people's driveways. I don't think people are going to have a massive go at you, and if they do, they'll get over it. Or just stopping and, so for me with Ernie, my dog, if I'm walking towards a dog and Ernie's doing his thing and he's saying like, okay, we can do this, it's fine, and the other dog is just like clearly not happy about it, but they're just being walked towards us, I will stop with Ernie and I will just put some food down for him to eat, because then I'm kind of making him look very unthreatening by turning him away and getting his nose down, and he's just doing something else, and then they can just walk past us, no problem. So it's always, you want to help your dog get through it, but if you're the one with the dog that can do it and the other dog can't, you can help. It's that community stuff that I'm sure we'll get to, just helping them out, just letting them, because it could be such a big learning experience for that dog to just be able to walk past a dog on that side of the road without actually interacting with them at all, maybe. And that could really pay into their learning experience that they're trying to achieve with their dog. So it's reading your dog, it's reading the other dog, and trying to just make it go off without a hitch as much as we can, I guess.
They have. I don't know if you follow the video. So I've had Sonny now since November, so 7 months, and he's super friendly. Like he's like so friendly.
Yeah,
Right?
he looks
But
like a ledge.
yeah. But he's like, see when so that'll be him. I think I said in my last podcast, I thought he was younger than that. My friend who works for SSPCA checked his chip, the date of his chip, so he will be 3 in August or September. So that is the age that he is. He's just a social idiot. It's really immature, right? Which is fine, you know. And he's probably got some Mastiff in him as well, which is a slow to mature breed, you know, the bigger breeds are. And
Mm,
by the time Sonny hits 5, 6 years old, he is going to be an absolute rock star socially, right? He just needs to,
mm.
mate, you just need to calm down, you know. So when he will, he, he stalks other dogs. When the other dog comes in, he does the collie. So he'll get down kind of a 3/4 crouch with his head in line with his spine, right? And he's a big black dog, a big giant Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and you can see the other dog going like that. Oh my God! And so firstly, the thing I say to the person is, he's totally cool. All right, they say me handling his long line better. And what you've just done there is I throw a food bomb over the top of his face, right? So
Mm,
that will break his concentration like that, and it basically just breaks all the tension.
mm,
And when I do that, the other dog will come in, or either walk past, or will come in and say hi, and everything's fine. And um, if I don't do that, and so there's a balance between letting them do it to a degree and trying to pump the brakes on a little bit, and giving them enough of we don't do that around other dogs because it freaks other dogs and people out.
yeah.
Right? I know that you're super friendly and all the rest of it. You know, I know that this is going to, and he's other dogs. If he oversteps the mark, dogs tell him off, and he just walks off. He just as if everything's cool. He turns his back and just goes, everything's fine, or he immediately presents his butt. You know, to go, we're fine. You know, everything's cool. Um, you know, so like there is not, so far that I've observed, not a hint of malice or aggression in him. You know, I mean, no
Mm,
retaliation at all. Yeah, cool. And then
mm.
he walk off and he rarely even shakes off. So I don't even think he's that bothered by it. I think he just goes,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
fine.
you know.
You're no
So
fun. Bye.
yeah. And it's not having that knowledge of your dog through these repeated interactions. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. Right. So
Yeah.
on you go. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, I think it doesn't necessarily always go to plan,
Hmm.
but I think that it's important that you get to know your dog by giving them some chances in a safe kind of way, you know, have them on a line so that they can't just go off on one. But just getting to know them, there's no way of getting to know them unless you go out with them and
Yeah.
let them have a go of it all, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
Right. Now, I know we'll probably have to break this and we'll get back on, okay, because we can do it in a number of parts because we've got a lot to talk about, which is totally fine. But I'm conscious that we've been on for about 50 minutes now. So, um,
Sure.
the how do we get from, so you've done the street aside, okay, say you meet a dog at the park, that you've done the introduction. What are you looking for to see that we want the your dog or the other dog wants that interaction to continue versus if they want it to finish? What are you looking for?
So I mean, it's all about distance and space, I think, with dogs. If they want to end an interaction with one another, they will generally move away unless they've learnt that that doesn't work, in which case they will try to get the other dog to leave, and you'll see more escalations of behavior like snapping and barking and lunging at them. But the dogs that want to stay in it, so you know, you'll approach and they will ideally go through the kind of sequence of nose to nose, nose to bum, and a little bit of circling, and then at that point it's going to go from to play, or they're just going to move away from each other generally. And if one dog goes through that sequence, and then they want to walk away and the other dog follows them. I mean, I will probably let them follow a little bit to just see, are they going to jog themselves out of it? But if they're starting to, this dog is just continuing to walk and walk and walk, and they're not kind of stopping and turning back to them to sniff them again, or you know, continue that interaction, kind of repeat that sequence almost, then I would step in and say, no, they're saying they're done now. Let's do our own thing. And then if it's going towards play, you might see those play bows, so they'll dip their shoulders down, and they might kind of jump about a little bit, and there might be a little bit to and fro with that, where they're kind of sussing each other out as playmates. And then if it's going into play, we're looking for those things we've already spoken about, that kind of mirroring and the handicapping and the breaks and things like that. But yeah, most dogs will opt for leaving a situation they don't want to be in, rather than kind of fighting their way out of it, as it were. So requests for space by moving away, you don't, like I say, I don't like jump right in and say like, oh, they've moved away from you, let's leave them alone. I'll try and let the dog work it out for themselves. If they can read the fact that this dog is leaving this area now, can they work out what is going on here? I'd much rather they did that, and then that's going to help them learn. But yeah, I think a lot of people miss those requests for space. They might kind of circle around. Also, if the people are stood still and the dogs have said hello, they are not going to want to necessarily stay in that space, especially if they're not going to play and get into that. They might kind of do that just because they don't know what else to do with themselves. But when the people stop and start chatting and catching up, which is lovely, I always encourage people to walk, because you think the dogs just want to move, because they get that kind of cabin fever, and the one dog wants to leave but the owner's there and they don't want to leave the owner. So then they're going to just get a bit worried about it all. So with unknown dogs, definitely you just want it to kind of be high and by, and we're just going to keep moving by. Or, and if you want to get to know the person because you think their dog is lovely and you're getting chatting about how wonderful your dogs are, get your feet moving so that the dogs can carry on doing what they're doing, so they can create that space, because they're probably able to share the space and, you know, move through that environment together, because they're very capable social creatures. But they might just not want to stand still near a dog they don't know and feel the pressure to stay there because their owners are there.
But neither do we don't either.
No, yeah. No, it's very unnatural.
So social distance, normal social distance, right? So normal social distance in the UK is what? You're standing.
I don't know. It was.
No, I'm not talking about COVID. I just mean normally.
Yeah, I would like to. You mean like if you were to stand and chat with someone you didn't know? How far away would you stand?
How far are you going to be?
I mean, it's going to be a good couple of meters. Is it more? I don't know.
Well, so it'll probably be less than that. I would say it's probably between 3 and 4 feet.
3 or 4 feet, okay. Right, is that? I don't know what that is in meters.
Right. So, so if your arm will be roughly about 60 centimeters long, most of us. Okay, so your forearm is 30 centimeters and your upper arm is about 30 centimeters. So if you can reach out and touch them, okay, that's 2 feet. And most of them standing talking to somebody will stand a little bit further away than that, right?
Sure.
And there'll probably be some blading of your body as well, so your hips and shoulders won't be square on. You'll be they'll be looking at an angle. Now, given that that's our normal, so in polite society, in other countries it might be different. In Italy, I think it's a little bit closer, and in Japan it's further away, right? Now, I've walked my dog on a 2 meter lead, at least a 2 meter lead forever. So what I'll do is, because I don't want my dog jumping, and I don't actually want my dog in somebody else's space, I stand at least 2 meters away, at least. But what happens then is the person then that becomes weird for the person, so they want to stand in closer. So I have to take a step back and eventually say to them, I'm just going to stand here so that my dog can't reach you, right?
Yeah.
So if we're not aware of those social norms as well, you're standing, 4 feet from somebody while your dogs are on a 2 meter lead, doing the butt sniff, doing that kind of the maypole dance, right? And people, this is one thing that cracks me up. People say the dogs got tangled. Oh, they're getting all tangled up. They're not getting tangled up on anything. It's not their lead. It's a human lead, right?
Yeah.
We got them tangled up. We put the lead on the dog and we didn't move. You have to be aware of those things as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's I think that at the park local to where I am, there's a group of people that clearly get together with their dogs, but they're always stationary. And to be fair, they do. There's a big space, and the dogs aren't all stood as close as the people are. But it's just for dogs, it's even more. They're not going to stand within a couple of feet of one another for very long, unless they're greeting or they're playing or they're mating or anything like that. So once they've gone through those earlier stages of just getting to know one another, like who are you, where have you been, what do you like, how are you feeling, they're going to want to then go back to having a little bit more space. And if they're not able or confident enough to get that space for themselves, even though the people are all stood around, then we've got to be thinking about how can we again facilitate that kind of for them to feel comfortable. I mean, I'm the loner walking around with my dog. I might pass through them because Ernie's a social dog and he likes to say hi to some dogs, so I'll often kind of do a little pass by, say hello to everyone, but I'm like stood, like you say, a few more meters away, and I'm moving around quite a lot, and I'm obviously being me, watching the dogs all the time and just making sure the dogs are okay and having the odd conversation with a person. But as soon as I see Ern's, like, again, he'll just start to walk away. He'll be like, right, I'm done now. I'll be like, all right, cool, we're going. Let's off we go. And then we can crack on. And so, yeah, it's a real wonder that not more altercations happen. But the most altercations I've seen between dogs has been those like gangs that stand around together where they have been playing, but they're not really being supervised necessarily by people who know what they're looking at. And then they kind of wanted to stop playing, but then they're all kind of hyped up because they've been playing and now they're all stood in a small space, and then they're starting to get annoyed with one another, basically, because they just don't want to be there.
There's 2 points I want to cover before you finish, and you just brought one of them up there, right? So you said supervised, right? With your own children, your parents, when you were a child, if you're playing with your siblings or you're playing with a peer group, that's not unsupervised, right? And with us in the UK, it's not even unsupervised until we're 17. It rarely is, right? Because in school, you're in a confined area and the teacher's supervising and modifying your behavior the whole time. And that's for young adults, let alone children, right? So if you're at the soft play with your kids or you go to a child's party, the reason why they want their parents there is because they need 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 supervision, adult to child ratio. So you don't have that luxury of going to the park and sitting there gassing with all your friends and not watching your dogs, because bother is going to start at some point. It just will, And I see it even with, it's like working with adult learners at jiu-jitsu. I'm on them all the time, because if I don't, what will happen is they stop the exercise and start chatting, or if I don't watch their arousal levels, it happens really rarely, and I mean rarely in my place, but it happens a lot. I've seen it happen a lot in other places where a fight starts.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
So, because you're on the edge of it all of the time, like
All the
because
time.
of the it can flip, and if you suddenly feel threatened in that scenario, you are gonna, because of this biology going on in your body.
And we had one night at jiu-jitsu, one of the guys, the two of them were in their mid-20s, all right, and one of the guys, this bear, he was huge, like 6'5", an ex-football player, rugby player. I mean, he's massive and so athletic, and against a guy who had a lot of size on and height, and they were going at it competitively because the two of them were horribly competitive. And I'll be careful with their names, all right? So let's call them Jimmy and Scott, right? So Jimmy, the big guy, went to tap into Scott, and Scott said that he didn't respect the tap, which was not. He said he tapped and he didn't listen, right? So that's Scott's opinion of it. And what happened was Scott bit Jimmy in the leg. Like a proper bite, right? Like
sure.
his calf.
Like I'm gonna die kind of bite.
Yeah. And then Jimmy took umbrage at that and the fight started because he's like, what did you bite
Right.
me for? Right. Now, when I went in and I knew the big guy, I knew him and I really liked him. And I was at him, I said, you need to keep the head. And he says, it wasn't me this time. And I said, cool. And I trust the guy that it wasn't him. I think that Scott has misread that entirely or hasn't tapped well enough. And when you look, now that can happen with people that know what they're supposedly know what they're doing. And you're that, and we're trusting dogs to do the same thing when it can, like that, just switch,
Mm.
you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, not every combination is good, you know,
No, absolutely.
or it might be for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, all of these dogs have got a different life experience,
Yeah,
and they might have had, these things in the past that have, when they felt threatened, they have kind of had to switch it up and defend themselves. So then, a misread bit of play on a
yeah,
random Tuesday afternoon at the park might just make them go, "Oh my God, what?" And then
yeah,
they'll turn around and they'll have to escalate it. And then people get very, very worried about that, obviously, kind of understandably. But like you've gone and you've sat those guys down,
yeah,
maybe, and you've gone like, what's gone on here? Let's just have a moment. And they've most likely been able to go like, okay, yeah,
yeah,
one of us got that wrong there. Whoa.
yeah,
And dogs are pretty good at getting over
yeah.
stuff. If you
Yeah, oh
can get
God,
in there and split them up, they get over it way quicker than people.
absolutely.
And they will then be able to just go back to sharing that space and maybe moving together and doing something else. But I mean, my ethos is that I would definitely, if those two dogs got into a bit of a scrap because someone wasn't listening or whatever went down, and you split them up, I'm a big believer in, within reason, keeping them in that area
Oh
just
yeah,
for a little bit,
yeah,
just so that they can realize actually that was okay.
yeah,
We might not be best mates and we're not going to go back in and play with one another, but actually everything's okay.
yeah,
And we can leave, but we're not going to run away because it wasn't anything to be run away from. We can just calm it, and then we'll think about what our next move is, rather than kind of panicking and rushing off, because then that lasting memory for that dog in that context is this sudden like worry,
yeah.
and that can really, once they've gone home and had a nap, that'll just lock in, and you don't want that.
But if you're so our working environment is social as well because there's social rules to working in a team. And if you fall out with somebody or have something contentious to say, you don't just down tools and go home. You
Mm-mm.
have to work it out, So you have to either, just as you said, learn to be able to sit with that person. And if you're not giving the dog the opportunity, they're never building those skills of recovery.
Absolutely. And it's that, yeah, that because the negative experience kind of pushes all this adrenaline and stress, and then it's there in their body, and unless we can help them to come down in that moment,
Yeah,
we're not giving them that skill of resilience as much as we could be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right, conscious of time. So this has been a quick hour, isn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Wise
I love
man.
talking about it.
I know, I know. And we've only covered, I don't even think we get halfway through the first set. There was 3 sections we were going to talk about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, what I'll do is we'll finish the recording here. Just hang on for a second because but we'll get you back on. Okay. So thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It's okay. Pleasure.
Thanks again for listening, everybody, and you can always give me feedback on the podcast. You can reach me through my socials at Glasgow Dog Trainer on Instagram, Facebook or YouTube, and you can also email me info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk, so that's .co.uk, and my website is glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. Much love to you, and I'll catch you on the next episode.